Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. The NHS is putting in store an awful lot of problems. They are performing one gender reassignment surgery every day. This has doubled in just a decade. And with it, this is where the problem becomes apparent, because not all of these cases are going to be people with gender dysphoria. They may be people with other mental issues, such as depression, grief. They may be homosexuals who are in denial. They may just be vulnerable people pushed down into this position by pressure groups or online communities or peer pressure. Who knows? Very few of them are actually going to be gender dysphoric because it is such an absolutely rare condition. Many of them will never have seen psychiatric or psychoanalytical help. And yet here they are undergoing surgery and destroying their lives and making themselves sterile. And the NHS is doing it. There will be court cases, there will be repercussions, and already there are talks of a huge class action against the NHS. This could amount to billions, with a B, billions of pounds in damages. And yet the NHS are still pushing it, because they daren't not, because this tiny group of mentally ill people may take offence. And so off they go, and they continue to sterilise children on an industrial scale, and also other young people, not quite children, but other young people also being sterilised because of political pressure. Well, I tell you, it's going to have to stop one day, and it'll either stop voluntarily, or the NHS will be bankrupt because of the billions it will have to pay out. Let's take a look at this article and see what the hell is going on. So, Trans Britain. NHS carries out one gender swap surgery every day as the number of procedures being carried out doubles in a decade. Nearly one Brit had surgery to change their gender, which it can't. Surgery cannot change your gender. It can only change your physical body. Can't change your gender, can't change your sex. Anyway, it was done every day between 2021 and 22. The record number, 355, obtained by the Mail Online analysis, illustrates the growth of Britain's trans community. No, it doesn't. It illustrates the growth of very vulnerable people undergoing terrible surgeries at the behest of a very small pressure group of mentally ill people. Such ops include the so-called bottom surgeries, when biological men have their genitalia cut off and skin fashioned into a neo-vagina. Biological females can undergo a phalloplasty, an op to create a penis, which it doesn't. Neither of these things are real. The complex surgery allows patients to better match their gender identity, but then they have terrible, terrible problems and pain for the rest of their often quite short lives, because people who undergo this surgery have something like a 15 to 20% higher rate of self-ending than normal people. People who, instead of doing this, get psychiatric help. Nearly 97% of the surgeries are for men transitioning to become women, because of course they are. Our analysis of tens of millions of hospitals admissions revealed there haven't been tens of millions of people doing this, let's be honest. But the NHS digital data, which spans nearly 20 years, does not break down the age of those receiving the surgeries. They're nearly all very, very young. And the reason they're so young is because they haven't lived their lives long enough to realise that they're not trans. And virtually every person who, and when you read all these stories about people who transition and then detransition, and they all massively regret it, and they say they all did it because they were pressured at a young age. Stephanie Davis-Arai of Transgender Trend, an organisation concerned about the current trend to diagnose children as trans, said the failure to record age could be considered negligence. The whole thing is negligence, and the fact that they're doing this predominantly to young people is seen as an example of pushing political agendas on those least suited to understand the implications. She said as older men typically do not go for the full sex reassignment surgery, just mentioned this, a young cohort may be driving the rise over the past decade. These young men are far more likely simply to be gay, but at NHS adult clinics they will be waved through without any proper assessment or exploration. We've talked about this time and time again. They were handing out gender changing medication. These people were the people handing it out weren't specialists, they weren't experts in the field. They were sometimes nurses and sometimes not even medically qualified. These people had never seen a psychiatrist or an analyst of any whatever kind. They were just going, oh yeah, that's fine. Single visit, have this, destroy your life, change yourself, become sterile for the rest of your life. You're talking about 12 and 13-year-olds. They will be paying a lot of money for this. The cases are already being looked at, and there is going to be one hell of a massive trial. And every person involved, not only does the NHS need to be completely fined the billions of pounds that's coming to it, but every single person involved all the way along needs to go to jail for this. Anyway, she said, and getting back into what Stephanie Davis-Aria was saying, vulnerable young men who are autistic, gay, or suffer mental illness issues will be affirmed as women, no questions asked. Been saying this for a long time. If it is a cohort of younger men swelling these figures, this will become the next medical scandal after the Tavistock. Miss Davis-Aria said the rising number of procedures were not surprising given the rise in transgender rights activism over the past decade. These mentally ill people going, oh, trans rights, this blah, 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 are fighting. What they're actually doing is industrial scale destruction of young people and children. These people that stand there with these placards and doing it need to be seen for what they are. They are the most massive, grooming, damaging people to children in the world. They are to children what a certain group of National Socialists were during the 30s to Jewish people. There is no difference between the two groups. Absolutely none. The only difference is, with the trans lobby, the politicians are crawling up their backside to show that they're, respectful, and virtuous. Tell the politicians what these people are doing and show the damage to these guys, and nobody will be backing them, because these people are absolutely the worst of the worst. What is worrying, she said, is that free treatment on the NHS is now seen as a right for those who suffer no medically diagnosed condition but wish to change their bodies to match an identity. The NHS was contacted for comment, but none was forthcoming. But of course there is. Now, this whole thing is disgusting. These are degenerate people who like to dress like this for their whatever fetish they like. But the look at the actual figures, the actual damage they're doing to children is utterly appalling. And that's what they're doing. They aren't transgender activists. They are the destroyers of children's futures. Recognise this. Call them out for it. Start pointing the fingers and make sure that everybody knows what they are. They are no different to the World War II bad guys in every single way. And when they're claiming and saying that babies can be trans, you know exactly what they want. They want those babies because they are all peas. Go to a prison, trans prisoners, 10 times more likely to be in for a sex crime than normal prisoners. That's because they're all fixated on the sexuality of what they do. And if it's only the ones that are caught are in prison, think about the ones that aren't caught. 10 times more likely. Government's own figures. And that is why we need to watch these people like hawks, never let them anywhere near children, and call them out for what they are. And every time they stand there on the street with their placards, they are the worst kind of people. Anyway, I'm finished now, coming up. I honestly can't wait for these court cases to begin. I want to see the doctors, I want to see the nurses, I want to see all these specialists, and I want to see all the managers, and I want to see them in a court, in the jury, in the witness box, trying to answer the questions, looking the victims in the eye, seeing what they've done, being accused of it. And then I want to see their faces when a jury finds them guilty and they do 30 years for doing what they've done. Because what they've done is nothing less than a war crime. Because if it had been done during, any kind of conflict, they would be looking, put it this way, after Nuremberg, there was people dangling for crimes lesser than this. That's how bad this is. So I want to see these crimes. I want to see them in court. And I want to see these people go away. And I do want the NHS to be fined billions. And I mean billions. I want the NHS completely destroyed. Because the NHS is responsible for this. It's doing it. And if this is what the NHS is doing, we need to completely wipe the NHS out and start again from first principles. Sure, we can have a socialised healthcare, but we cannot have an NHS where they are performing operations like this on an industrial scale on children. Anyway, I'm rambling and I'm done, and They're just degenerate and they make me sick. Coming up. I'm up already up. Take a breath, David. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please do hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and if you don't, then you've done very well in getting to the end, and I thank you. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, please God look after your children, and goodbye.